Hi everyone, my name is Monique, and today I'm going to be showing you how to play a game called Joyride, Survival of the Fastest, designed by Duncan, Molloy, and Pete Ward, and published by Rebellion Unplugged, who are helping sponsor this video. In Joyride, up to 4 players compete through a high-speed, chaotic race, dodging obstacles, picking up items, and bumping cars out of the way to be the first to cross the finish line. The game includes 12 different tracks that feature a variable number of laps, as well as specific changes to setup. And so today, I'm going to be showing you how to play the game using the opener qualifying race, which is perfect for beginners, while still adding plenty of challenge. Now, if you're interested in learning more about the game, I've included a link to the publisher's website in the description below. And lastly, if you enjoy content like this and would like to see more in the future, please consider subscribing. Otherwise, let's start with setup. First, choose a track from the race guide and collect all of the required tokens as shown. Then, place the game board in the center of the table with the appropriate location face up, which for the qualifying race is the junkyard. Place all of the required items, obstacles, and checkpoint tiles on the map according to the track's setup diagram. Place checkpoints 1 and 3 with their item side that features the question mark face up as indicated. As for checkpoint 2, place both tokens as indicated with their normal side face up and pointing towards each other, forming a checkpoint line between them. Then, place the indicated obstacle as well as the starting line tile, which marks where players' vehicles will start and end the race. If any players are new to the game, it is recommended that you exclude the airstrike item when playing this track. Shuffle all other item tokens into a face-down stack and place their item descriptions nearby for players to easily reference. Next, each player chooses a car and gathers the corresponding dashboard, driver abilities, initiative token, 5 dice, and gear stick placed on gear 2. Now you may notice that many components in the game, such as the dashboard, have an alternate side with high contrast visuals for accessibility. During setup, each player should choose the side that works best for them. Players also choose whether to use their unique or standard set of ability tokens, placing them next to their player board and returning the other set to the box. Keep in mind that players must use a complete set, as ability tokens cannot be mixed. However, if any players are new to the game, it is recommended that all players use the standard abilities. Place the initiative track next to the board and randomly assign a player's initiative token to the bottom of the track. That player then places the front of their car on an empty space on the starting line, pointing in the direction indicated by the race guide. Repeat this process until all players' initiative tokens are on the initiative track and all vehicles are on the starting line. Players then simultaneously roll 2 dice and add up their values, moving their vehicles that many spaces forward in a straight line. The rolled dice are then kept on the rearview mirror of their dashboard, maintaining the rolled values. And lastly, create a supply of damage tokens nearby, and now you're ready to play. In Joyride, players race to complete a set number of laps around the track depending on the chosen race. Players start the game on the starting line and will need to pass through a certain number of checkpoints in numerical order and then cross the finish line to complete 1 lap. And the first player to finish the specified number of laps wins the race. So in order to win, you'll need to use your dice wisely in order to move around the board efficiently and avoid taking damage. Each round, players will take turns in the order of their markers on the initiative track, beginning with the player whose marker is in the topmost space and ending with the player at the bottom. At the end of each round, the initiative markers will be rearranged, as you'll see later. Now on your turn, you'll move your car twice. First, by using unrolled dice in order to move an exact distance, and then by rolling your remaining dice to move further, but always moving in a straight line. To change direction, you may also steer, but typically only once per turn. This 2-part movement is beneficial for setting up vehicle placement, allowing players to position themselves effectively for when they want to change direction and potentially avoid obstacles and collisions. Player turns consist of 5 phases, starting with the start phase. This phase is only resolved if the active player chooses to activate abilities or effects that reference the start phase. Otherwise, proceed to the lock phase, where you'll have your first opportunity to move your car. Each player has their own dashboard representing their race car. The gear dictates their speed and is always equal to the number of dice on their rear view mirror at the start of their turn. Additionally, the dashboard can hold up to 2 items, but any spaces marked by a white dashed outline are damage slots, which can be permanently disabled. During the lock phase, you may choose to lock up to 4 dice from your rear view mirror, placing each die in undamaged dice slots. When doing so, you may choose to lock 0 dice, but keep in mind that locked dice will retain their current value for the next round, and you will be required to roll your remaining dice during your roll phase. And if you start this phase with no dice on your mirror, then you simply move on to the next phase. Then, add up the total value of your locked dice and move your car that many spaces on the board. Cars in this game always occupy 2 spaces and move in a straight line, with the back of the car moving into the space that the front just left. When moving, cars must travel the exact number of spaces shown on the locked dice, counting from the front of the car, unless modified by an item, ability, or effect, or if the car crashes. To complete 1 lap, you'll need to first cross each checkpoint in numerical order by moving your car onto any space within the checkpoint row. This is the row of spaces between 2 tokens, or in the case of this first checkpoint, between the token and the edge of the board that it's pointing towards. And once each checkpoint has been cleared, then you must cross the starting line to finish the lap. Now it's important to keep in mind that all checkpoints, as well as the starting line, may be crossed from either direction. But checkpoints must be cleared in numerical order. In addition to white hexagonal spaces, the game board features a variety of barriers and obstacles surrounded by black borders, which can never be crossed. So if you ever need to change direction, you'll need to steer, which can typically only be done once per turn, either during the lock phase or during the roll phase, as you'll see later. When steering during the lock phase, you must first decide if you'd like to steer before moving your car. If you choose to steer, instead of moving the car straight, you'll move the front of the car diagonally to the right or left, then continue in a straight line. But if you choose not to steer, you'll have another opportunity to do so during the roll phase. Now, once you've finished moving, proceed to the shift phase, where you can decide to change gears in order to speed up or slow down. Your gear dictates the number of dice you'll have on your dashboard at the start of your turn. During the shift phase, you can shift up to increase your speed by adding a die to your rearview mirror, allowing your car to move further and advancing your position on the initiative track at the end of the round. Moving ahead of another player on the initiative track means you get to take 2 turns before they take their next one. This can be crucial for dodging collisions, using items, and even winning the game. However, you may only shift up if your next gear is undamaged and up to a maximum gear of 5. Instead, you can choose to shift down, reducing your speed by removing a die, which will move you later in the turn order. But keep in mind that dice are always added to or removed from your mirror, never from locked dice slots, which means you cannot shift down if there aren't enough dice to remove. Alternatively, you can choose to stay in your current gear, leaving your dashboard unchanged, or if you need to slow down significantly, you can engine brake, which moves your gear down 2 spaces and removes 2 dice from your mirror. However, doing so also causes you to gain a damage token. Damage tokens are placed on one of the available damage slots on your dashboard, marked by a white dashed outline. Once a damage token is placed, the covered space is permanently disabled for the rest of the game. Damage to locked dice slots limits your ability to control your speed, while damage to item slots prevents you from holding items. Additionally, when damaging gear slots, always damage the highest gear available. And if your current gear is damaged, you must immediately shift down. For the rest of the game, you can no longer shift into that gear, decreasing your maximum speed. Although, if at any point all of your damage slots are filled, you can ignore any further damage for the remainder of the game. Damage taken during other players' turns are assigned immediately, while damage taken on your turn is placed on your rearview mirror and assigned during the end step of your turn. After shifting gears, you'll then move on to the roll phase, where you'll have another opportunity to move your car. During this phase, any dice remaining on your mirror must be rolled. And similar to the lock phase, you'll then be required to move your car a number of spaces equal to the total value. Now, if during the lock phase you did not choose to steer, or if your car is in gear 2, you may choose to steer once prior to moving, and you can check the results of your die roll before deciding. Some situations require maneuvers other than steering to navigate through, such as reversing. If during the roll phase your car is in gear 1, you may move in reverse, moving the back of your car as though it were the front. Now keep in mind that you may only reverse during the roll phase, which means if you start your turn in gear 1, you must skip your lock move to reverse. As you can see, the ability to move twice and shift gears during your turn gives you the flexibility needed to navigate the track, which will be essential for not only progressing through the race, but also in order to avoid accidents and collisions. When moving your car, if you cannot move into a space because there's a barrier in the way, you smash your car. Ignore any additional movement and drop your gear to 0, removing your gear stick and all dice from your dashboard. In addition, take 1 damage. At this point, your turn now ends, and you can shift up again on your next turn. Now keep in mind that barriers include any spaces outlined by a thick black border, including the starting line and checkpoint tiles. If ever you move into a space containing another vehicle, a collision occurs, and the result depends on where the other car was hit. Sideswiping a car by hitting it on its side causes the car to rotate until it is no longer in your way. The end of the car that you did not hit stays in place, while the other end is pushed out of the space you're moving into until it is no longer blocking your movement. Rear-ending another car by hitting them from behind pushes their car forward in a straight line and reduces your speed. While directly pushing another car, your remaining movement is halved, rounded up. However, in the rare case that you are no longer pushing the other car, your remaining speed is doubled. And if you hit another car head-on, the driver of that car gets to decide whether both cars immediately smash, taking a damage, or if they resolve the situation like a rear end, but moving their car backwards. If a collision causes the car you are hitting to strike additional cars, those cars are simply pushed or rotated. And hitting additional cars from the front or back does not further reduce your speed. However, if a barrier blocks the movement or rotation caused by a collision, a pileup occurs. Every car that is prevented from moving takes damage and shifts down 1 gear, including the active player, who then proceeds to the end of their turn. As you can see, the race can get a bit tricky, but players can use collisions to their advantage, bumping cars out of the way in order to navigate through tight positions. Players also have 3 rechargeable driver abilities at their disposal. Each ability highlights in green which steps of a player's turn it can be used. When you use an ability, flip its token face down, indicating that it can no longer be used until it's recharged. Each time you complete a lap, you may recharge 1 ability for every car that finished the lap before you. These standard abilities are the same for all players and include the Gear Master that allows you to go up or down an extra gear when shifting or engine braking, Precision Driving, which allows you to change the value of a locked die before moving, and Handbrake Turn, which allows you to change directions by 2 spaces during your next steer. As for the unique abilities, these effects will vary depending on the chosen car, but in general, abilities with this symbol are permanent and apply every turn, whether or not it is beneficial to you. And abilities with this symbol can be flipped, revealing a new side that becomes available. However, you can only use 1 side of the token per turn, and you'll need to use the second side in order to flip it back to the first, as these types of abilities cannot be recharged. Most tracks also include a mix of items that can either be earned by completing checkpoints with the item icon, such as in the qualifier race, or by driving over a face-down item on the track. In either case, you must first finish your movement before picking up the item, placing it face up on an empty item slot on your dashboard to either use immediately or save for later. If all item slots are full, you must first discard an item before revealing a new one. And if both item slots are damaged, reveal the item to all players and discard it. There are 3 main types of items that you'll see in the game. Dropped items are dropped onto the board in any empty space within your car's rear arc, which are the 3 spaces at the back of your car. Although, if all spaces are filled, you cannot drop an item. Some dropped items explode when damaged, and anytime an item causes an explosion, a car in the same space takes the damage and shifts down 1 gear. Any cars in adjacent spaces also take a damage, and any items in the same or adjacent space are removed from the game. There are also activated items, which specify when they can be used, as well as fired items, which must shoot out in a straight line in the direction your vehicle is pointing, but from any space within your car's front arc, which are the 3 spaces at the front of the car. And once you've finished moving, you'll proceed to the end step of your turn. Return all locked and rolled dice to your mirror, maintaining their current values. And if you're forced to shift down or gain damage during your turn, do so now, along with assigning damage tokens to your dashboard. Then, play proceeds to the next player on the initiative track. And once each player has taken a turn, the round ends. Players reorder their tokens on the initiative track based on their gear level, with the car in the highest gear going first. And if multiple cars are in the same gear, tied players maintain their relative turn order. Then begin the next round, starting with the first player. And as soon as a player is able to complete the required number of laps, they win the race. And that is how you play Joyride. Now again, this game comes with 12 different races with varying levels of difficulty, as well as another location known as the Overpass that contains special spaces. For setup details and recommended player counts for each race, be sure to check out the race guide that's included with the game. Otherwise, if you have any questions about anything that you saw here today, please feel free to leave me a comment down below and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you all so much for watching the video. I really hope it was helpful. If you enjoy content like this and would like to see more in the future, please consider subscribing. Thank you. Bye.